The Service de Police de la Ville de Montréal, also known as the SPVM, received the second highest increase towards their budget ever, by $45 million. This means that the total budget for the SPVM in 2022 will be $724 million.
The SPVM managed to finagle a $45 million operating budget increase out of the city this year. It's the biggest increase anywhere in Canada this year.
Montreal has the largest police force per capita, while also having right now the largest police budget increase in 2022, and at the same time has the lowest public support for policing and the highest support for the defund movement in the city.
But is an additional $45 million the only money the SPVM will be receiving? Last month, the SPVM revealed that it went over budget by $51 million. The City of Montreal has agreed to pay this, but what will stop them from doing this in 2022?
No other, municipal department can get away with spending that much money, overspending that much money, going that far out of the limits of their budget without some kind of consequence. But the City of Montreal is now rewarding the SPVM with a $45 million budget increase.
But police say that they are still experiencing budgetary challenges, and as a result have proposed to close neighborhood police stations, known as postes de quartier or PDQs.
They overspent by $51 million, and now Sylvain Caron, the director of the SPVM, says that we need to close neighborhood police stations in order to save money. And so the city has something like 29 or 30 neighborhood police stations. They were put in place in the late 1990s. A lot of Montrealers really like the police stations. So it's a quite brilliant strategy. It's like the only way that we can control, you can either let us spend as much money as we want, or we're going to cut back on the one thing that you like. So this is their new phase. And we have a bunch of politicians who are fighting to preserve the postes de quartier on the grounds that we want the police to know us. We like the foot patrols. We like the bike patrols. We like that they're at our community events, etc.
Why does the SPVM have this power where they can overspend, lie about their budget needs, and then use kind of these fears around public safety to manipulate the administration without ever being held to account? The worst part about all of that, so, the $45 million increase not being enough for Caron, is that Plant and the official opposition have now pledged to do everything possible to maintain the PDQs, which means that there's a chance that the budget will be increased even more, which is ridiculous and really speaks to the power that the SPVM holds over the political landscape in Montreal.
Local 514 reached out to Daphne Collin, president of the Public Safety Commission, to better understand the need for raising the police budget. However, Collin declined an interview with Local 514. Following Black Lives Matter protests in the summer of 2020, Valérie Plante said that she would be open to looking into defunding the police. Montreal residents were asked if they wanted the police budget to be decreased, with 73% responding yes. However, the city ended up increasing the police budget by $14 million in the fall of 2020. So what else will this additional funding be going towards? The SPVM said that the funding will allow for 60 new officers to be hired, despite Projet Montréal claiming that the added funding would allow for 122 new officers to join the city's police force. Let's put this into perspective. Montreal's budget for violence prevention will be $5 million this year. Funding for supporting the homeless will be $5.9 million, and the municipal government will provide $111 million to build 12,000 units of social housing. While the last number may seem high, this is only 15% of the SPVM's budget of $724 million for 2022. Capital investments, which sustains and expands the SPVM's infrastructure, equipment, and property, will increase this year by $20 million. The Plante administration has justified the increase for the expansion of shooting ranges to train officers in shooting, providing electric cars and body cameras. Foniemi, Executive Director of the Center for Research Action on Race Relations, also known as CRAR, has represented many people who have been racially profiled by police officers. Niemi says he has noticed within cases he's represented that the SPVM has policies which contribute to racial profiling.
There's another systemic practice. We believe it comes from some sort of policy directive, which we have not been able to put our hands on it, but we've seen, because case after case, year after year, we start to see it clearly now, is this tendency or the practice on the part of police officers to stop almost systematically any car with a rental license plate driven by a black male driver or even black female drivers. So there's an association of rented cars with criminal elements or activities. And we believe that that comes from some policy directive somewhere, and we haven't. We hope to get to the bottom of this. At the end of January, we had another case of a young black man driving a Mercedes with a rented commercial license plate and was stopped by the police in Montreal North, and within a matter of minutes, he was arrested. Because first, a 19-year-old black male driving a Mercedes, actually it's a father's car, rented car, and he had to basically account some sort of mechanical counter in his car. It's, sometimes you check on the vehicle's sort of engine, and the police officer automatically assumed that equipment is used to steal cars. So they arrested him, they handcuffed him right on the spot without any further questioning. We've seen a pattern of, driving a rented car as being suspicious. And that does not come from basically some sort of personal attitude. We believe it comes from a directive somewhere, and we need to find it. And we hope to find it, and we will find it eventually if these cases go to court, because that's not the only case that we have. We have about 4 or 5 cases like this in Montreal because of the number of cases we have over the years. So we have been able to draw a pattern. And so that's why we talk about systemic policies and practices that go beyond the individual or personal bias on the part of the officers.
Local 514 reached out to the SPVM's media relations for details on their anti-racism training and plans to reduce racial profiling. They did not comment, but forwarded us to a webpage detailing the SPVM's citizen relations policy. In 2020, the SPVM acknowledged that there is systemic discrimination within its organization. That summer, Montreal's police force issued a framework for street checks, identifying that street checks must be based on observable factors and not discriminatory motives. A team was set up to assist officers in street checks to enforce the policy, and an independent strategic supervisor was hired to question the SPVM's practices to, quote, ensure services are free from any form of discrimination, whether systemic or individual. The province has handed out $31 million in tickets related to enforcing COVID-19 sanitary measures in 2021. Our healthcare system and long-term care homes, which have been described as collapsing amid the pandemic following budget cuts by the provincial government, have experienced outbreaks. But the government has chosen to rely on punitive measures to boost morale for Quebecers to follow COVID regulations.
The CAC, for example, they want to blame the continuing pandemic on people who haven't been vaccinated. And I'm vaccinated. I think people should get vaccinated. But obviously, it's politically strategic to make it seem like the reason that we're suffering, that people are still dying, and that we're confined to our homes is because of a very small minority of people. And then because you've minoritized them, you've dehumanized them, then you can do whatever you want to them. And some of the people who haven't gotten vaccinated think the state is doing authoritarian overreach, and somehow finding them is going to switch their perspective on this. Could we potentially incentivize getting vaccinated? Could we send people door to door saying, we'll come vaccinate you right here, and here's a check so you can live for the next 2 days?
So what can we do to prevent a future increase, especially one as large as an additional $45 million?
Anyone who wants something more than that is often forced to vote for Projet Montréal. They beat many better progressive candidates in the last election from smaller parties, so people vote for Projet Montréal a lot of progressives vote for them. And they managed to strangle out any progressive idea when it comes to public security. So looking across Canada this year, Montreal is the only major city that I saw where there was not a single city councillor speaking in favor of defunding the police. The only one. And that doesn't mean that there aren't people in Projet Montréal that want to defund the police. It means that they're not allowed to speak about that and they have to vote with the party. We've got a political party that's managed to squat the center of the political spectrum and drown out any progressive voice. We can think about what that means. I think that we need people running in third parties.
I strongly encourage people of all backgrounds, of all ages, to participate more in city affairs, in civic affairs, hearings or public council meetings, and to ask questions to our city councillors and local administration officials as to the justification of these expenses, of these styles of intervention, of these, the equipment, because without active questioning, without very, very rigorous demands for accountability, things won't change.